Hello YouTube and welcome back into another Dare to Game video. Today we are playing Cyberpunk 2077 and we are going to be discussing some important and or helpful tips for playing this game. I'm not going to pretend you have to do things this way or the game will suck or you will struggle. Many of these are just designed to help you optimize your experience and enjoy the game. But let's just dive on in and get started. So tip number 1 is enjoy Act 1. Without getting into too many spoilers, I recommend you really take your time and enjoy the first act of the game. After you make all of your background decisions and the world opens up to you, you will be able to explore and do side missions and all sorts of activities. I recommend not progressing through the main story any further and really taking in Watson. You will not be able to leave Watson, but it is one of the biggest sections of the map and has the most gigs and police scanner hustles to complete. I recommend doing this for two primary reasons. The first reason is that this will help you gain experience and level up, as well as help you get some good weapons and clothing before doing any more main missions. This will make the missions easier, especially if you're playing on a harder difficulty. This will also expose you to all of the game's mechanics in a way that the tutorial never really could. That way, when you do move on, you will actually know what you are doing. The second reason I recommend taking your time and doing all of the side content available in Watson before doing any more main story missions is that very early in the game, a massive event happens to the player, and the rest of the game has an artificial rushed feeling to it based on the outcomes of that event. If you take the time to screw around beforehand, it doesn't feel like you're wasting time or screwing something up by checking out an assault in progress or busting up an underground snuff film style braindance operation instead of doing the main mission. So yeah, my first tip is as soon as Watson opens up, do all of the side content before progressing through the main story. It's going to really increase your enjoyment of the story as a whole. So tip number 2 is utilize armor mods. Armor is a huge part of gameplay in Cyberpunk 2077. Basically, there are 6 clothing slots for the character, and each one increases your armor rating. There are 5 levels of gear that you can utilize with stats ranging from 1 armor to over 200. A lot of people waste a lot of time and money rapidly switching clothing pieces for a few points to gain. This is really stupid. If you want clothing that is going to keep you safe, then look for clothing at any level that has mod slots. The max for the torso armor is 4 mod slots for both layers. The most I've seen for pants and hats is 3 armor slots, and the most I've seen for shoes and glasses is 2 armor slots. Again, there might be more for those ones, but that's the most I've observed in the game so far. Once you've unlocked the crafting schematic for the Armadillo Armor Mod, which is discovered for free in Watson at a Assault in Progress, so if you're doing those, then you'll find this schematic. You can craft these for very few resources. Then each one of those slots can be filled up with an Armadillo mod. These mods seem to be random as to which level they will be crafted at, but even the base level ones will net you a higher armor gain than most new pieces of clothing will. And it costs basically nothing to make these mods, and you can always swap out the mod for a higher level one when you get or make one later on. So it's a win-win either way. So tip number 2 is to find clothing that you will like with as many mod slots as possible, and then just fill those up with Armadillo mods. This will save you a lot of money and will make you basically unstoppable in the game. Tip number 3 is kind of a short and simple one, but it's very important. One of, if not the most useful skills in Cyberpunk 2077 is crafting. It allows you to make incredible amounts of money, and the best clothing and weapons in the game are crafted ones. Not to mention, iconic items are upgraded through crafting, making them nigh unstoppable god-tier death machines, capable of leveling an Arasaka strike team in moments. So, no matter what playstyle you're going for, putting time and effort, and especially skill points, into making crafting a priority is essential. This one ties into the previous tip and also the next tip, because the higher your crafting skill is, the more often you will get higher tier mods when you craft them. And the skills and attribute system in this game is finite. So while you may gain more skill points going through, there are a finite amount of attribute points. So if you use all of them too early, you won't be able to put any in crafting, and then you'll miss out on a lot of the very, very high level stuff in the game. And that leads us quite nicely into tip number 4, which is spend your attribute points wisely. The max level for your character in Cyberpunk 2077 is 50. That means that throughout the game, you will gain 50 attribute points to be used across your various attributes, such as intelligence, cool, reflexes, etc. There are 5 of these attribute categories, each one maxing out at 20. So that means it would take far more points to max everything out than you will get. In addition to this simple fact, you cannot level up your skill past your attribute level. So if your technical ability attribute is only level 8, then you cannot get your crafting or engineering skills to go higher than level 8. For these reasons, it is important to plan carefully. At the beginning of the game, you will be given 7 attribute points to distribute to give your character a slight edge towards the playstyle you're hoping to play as. Most people will spread them out, giving 2 or 3 of them to 2 or 3 different attributes that they plan to utilize, and then the last point or 2 to secondary attributes. So if you want to play as a swordsman, this would mean popping 3 attribute points into body and 3 into reflexes, and then maybe 1 into cool, or something like that. You could also use these points for something that you know you aren't going to use as much, therefore ensuring that you will be high enough level in that area for certain things. So if you want to be a stealth netrunner style player, maybe you pop all of these starting points into the body skill. That way, even though you spend the whole game hacking into people and computers, you should also be strong enough to force doors open or carjack people whenever you need a vehicle. The easiest method is to make sure that every skill is at least at level 10, and then put any other attribute points into your 1 or 2 most important attributes. That way you will not be locked out of most of the level-based decisions in the game, but you can still specialize. So tip number 4 is use your points wisely, and know that there is a limit you will reach, and once that happens, you cannot reassign your attribute points. So tip number 5 is one that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but it is very important. Don't waste your money on cars. In this game, there are a lot of shiny cars that, once available, you will be tempted to buy, and there is an achievement for owning every buyable car, so you may want to get them all for that reason. But what I can say is there is almost no advantage to having a fancier or faster car in this game. Most of the moving around you do is in a congested city, where you can't travel very fast anyway, and NPCs do not react to what you are driving in any way. So there is little reason to blow money on high-end cars unless you are doing it purely for the pleasure of driving. In addition to that, fast travel, and in some cases movement on foot, is actually a lot faster and way more convenient. So in my second playthrough, I only ever used vehicles when moving around the Badlands. And if all of those reasons weren't enough, you can actually get a best-in-class vehicle for every single category for free by doing various different missions, or for the fastest car in the game, simply by going to a specific location after a certain quest and finding it. So even if you want fast and fancy cars, you'll get them for free by just doing side missions. Also, you can literally make it through the entire game just by carjacking random people and using that car for as long as you want, or ditching it and getting another one. There are currently a lot of things to spend your hard-earned eddies on, such as clothing, weapons, and cyberware upgrades. So tip number 5 is, really, don't waste your money on cars. Tip number 6 should be an obvious one, but for some people it really isn't. And that tip is, don't get rid of any iconic items. So this next tip is really not a complicated one. You will come across various iconic items in this game, from guns to swords, clothing, and even cyberware mods. These are, for the most part, upgradable items and should never be discarded, as when you are able to upgrade them, hopefully all the way to the legendary level, they are the best items in the game. In addition to this, there's a cool display wall in V's apartment where certain weapons will automatically display when you've placed them inside the stash. So that's pretty cool. In summary, the iconic items are one of a kind and cannot be replaced once sold or scrapped, so don't get rid of them under any circumstances. Tip number 7 is one that longtime viewers of the channel should be pretty aware of, and that is keep several backup saves. This tip has multiple reasons. The first of which is that as a huge open world RPG, Cyberpunk has lots of branching storylines that have different outcomes, depending on your choices. This could be something as simple as getting a specific quest reward, or being able to romance someone. Or it could be the final outcome of the entire game. So it is good to keep a number of backup saves that will allow you to jump back and redo something if you did it wrong, or if you would just like to see the other outcome. The other reason that this is a good idea is that the game is currently getting major updates and patches on the regular, and the risk of corrupting a save through one of these processes is very high. If you have backup saves that will allow you to drop back into the game from an earlier point, you may be able to continue your playthrough without having to start over from the beginning. Or if you just want to play the game again from where you started initially, so let's say you don't want to change your career path, you can start after the tutorial, so you don't have to do all that over again. In any case, there's a lot of reasons to make sure you've got a couple backup saves to jump back into. So tip number 7 is to save before each main mission and keep the separate save files so you can go back to any point in the game if you need to. And finally, tip number 8 is do not blow through the game at light speed. This game does not have a bunch of end game content. It operates on a system very similar to The Witcher 3, where you will get to a point of no return, where you will be prompted to save. After this, you will complete the final act all at once, in which you are locked out of free roam and must continue the story. Once you have completed any of the various endings, you can quit, or go back to the point before the point of no return. The reason blowing through the main story at light speed makes no sense is two-sided. On one hand, your character feels more complete if you do all the side content and develop your relationships with all your friends and loved ones along the way. In addition to that, there is the sweet clothing and weapons that you will be able to use in the final mission to consider. But there is another, more serious reason why it's really dumb to do this. If you just do the main story and barely touch the side content, you will get the default ending, or what I call the game journalist ending. This ending is the default ending that you will get if you do the bare minimum to finish the story. It is by far the worst and least satisfying ending, and in my opinion, makes the whole game feel pointless. I love that CD Projekt Red made the default quick path ending this one, as I feel it is really a crime to gaming to blow through games like this barely scratching the surface. So tip number 8 is take your time and enjoy the game. It will try to rush you via the narrative, but don't worry. Nothing bad happens if you ignore that prompt and explore the world a little more, or help out the people of Night City one more time. And that, my friends, is my list of 8 tips I think are most essential to having a good experience in Cyberpunk 2077. It is in no way all-inclusive, and there are a lot of other important things to discover. But if you keep these things in mind and take my advice here, you should be able to enjoy the game as much, if not more, than I have over the last month or so. But in any case, that's all for today, so thanks for watching and have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.